everyone recognizes a good campfire and what it feels like to be around a fire, especially in the transitional time of day when the sun's going down, the light's waning, and the light of the fire is coming up. People drop into a reverent space, and the sharing becomes rich and real, and something deep and heartfelt comes out in people's expression, and that's powerful. Now, if you add plant medicine to that phenomenon, what happens is miraculous. The depth of understanding, the depth of the awakening that occurs for people, and then what comes out in the dialogue afterwards, it's rich, it's transformative, it's powerful. Science gives us an intellectual understanding of how these medicines work, how they affect the brain, cognition, behavior, the impact they have on conditions such as PTSD, anxiety, depression, addiction, and they work. And they work where traditional drug therapy, pharmaceuticals have failed or are minimally successful. The reason I do this in a ceremonial way is it adds an element that's essentially missing from the medicalization or the therapyization of plant medicine. What I'm doing is honoring the sacred sacrament that they are, that they're sacred allies, they're intelligent beings, and recognizing them as such, acknowledging that. And the ceremonial space, as I've been trained, as I have learned, gives us deeper access to what's available with the plant medicines. It's far more than just a drug or a therapy. So how I work is I've created sacred space on the land, on the earth, under the open sky, with fire, in a very ancient way. It's primitive in many ways. It takes us to ground zero. It takes us to the earth and puts us in an environment that connects us to nature. And that's really important, to be connected to nature. The nature outside of us, the nature within us, and that's the spiritual nature of working with plant medicine, is it touches on something deep within us, a deep knowledge, a deep knowing that's awakened, where we remember who we are. We move past our conditioning and our conditions, our diagnosis. I don't diagnose people. I'm not treating anything. I'm working with what's right. And with that, the access is through ceremony. So when I lay down the circle and I open this ceremonial space with an invocation and a prayer, there is not a wasted word in any of that. When I make the fire, when I chop the wood and prepare food and open ceremonially, it's intentional, and it gives us access through the ritual, because we're wired for ritual. It gives us access to something so much more and far deeper than if we were just in a room with a blanket, earpads, iPads, earphones, and piped in music, and somebody sitting by. This is a different experience, and it connects us through the medicine and through the dialogue that happens on the other side of the journey, that opens the way to insights and new understandings that transcend whatever the issues are in our ordinary, everyday, ego-oriented life experience. I understand that indigenous cultures regard plant medicine as a sacrament, that the medicine itself has an intelligence. In some cultures they call it the teachers or the little people, and they honor and recognize it that way. It just so happens that in my work, the way I've worked, I've discovered that for myself. It wasn't because I have come from an unbroken lineage. I haven't. My lineage was broken. I have indigenous roots. In fact, we are all indigenous. Whether it's this continent, or Europe, or Africa, or Asia, or the Pacific Rim, we are all indigenous. And it behooves us to connect with our indigenous roots energetically, not through 23andMe, not through DNA testing, but through a spiritual connection. Essentially, it's being in right relationship with the earth, right relationship with the medicine, right relationship with ourselves, connected to natural law, spiritual principles like that. Even if we can't recite them, there's a intuitive knowing of what that feels like. That's the power of the ritual. That's the power of opening ceremonially. Is it connects us to something ancient and primal within us. And I have found this to be true over and over again in my work. First of all, we have to do the work on ourselves to become intimately familiar with the plant medicine within ourselves, and to do that deep inner work before we can begin to work with other people. Set and setting in the psychedelic paradigm is the mindset we have going into the experience and the setting that we create in terms of the environment. You know, a safe place, we've controlled as many of the variables as we can, so there's, you know, nothing unexpected going to happen in the space. Setting the space through ceremony creates a safe, sacred container inside of which people can do the deep work that they've come to do. And they have to know they're safe. Really, they have to know there's love for them in the space, or else we wouldn't get anything done. They wouldn't be able to go there, wherever it is they need to go, to heal, to address past trauma, which we've all had trauma in our lives, from the least to the most, everything in between, that whole range. And to be able to be with that and see it from another perspective. It's that shift in perspective that creates change. So the healing power of plant medicine is not in the chemistry alone. It's connection to nature. It's connection to earth and sky, welcoming and acknowledging the seen and the unseen, the energies that are around us and within us. Because ultimately what the medicines are for is the healing of the mind and the expansion of consciousness. The best example that I can give you is from my own experience of working with the plant medicine early on. And it was after the passing of a really dear friend of mine. And I didn't realize the extent to which I was grieving. Not only did I experience my grief, because grief unexpressed has nowhere to go. It had to come out. But there was something else. There was a yearning for deep connection within myself. It was as if I were grieving that loss, that something more that I wanted. I wanted to know, who am I? I wanted to know why I'm here. And I wanted to know who sent me. Not just what I was taught, told, or given. I wanted to have direct experience of that animating force in my life for myself. I wanted direct connection with that. It came out of a devotion and a discipline to have that. And it wasn't just working with the plant medicine alone. It was a daily practice of connecting with spirit. Daily, every day, establishing that deep connection, which, as I understand now, connecting in the vertical plane stabilizes the horizontal plane in my life, in the lives of the people I work with. I see this all the time. And now the folks that come to me, they're longing for something. They're grieving over the loss of something. They're reaching for something more in their lives. And, you know, it doesn't matter who they are, how much money they make, how successful they've been. Yes, most people have been successful in their lives, and there's still something authentic that they want more. They want to be more deeply in touch with for themselves. And I experienced that through my own deep personal work and recognized the calling for it in people. And that's why I bring people here to the fire, so that they can access this for themselves. Not because I give it to them, but because I create a sacred container inside of which they can access this for themselves. And it's a deeply spiritual experience. There's no other way to describe it. It's not a therapeutic experience. It's not a medical address, symptomatic relief. It's a transformation. All these things do surface. Their depression, their anxiety, their trauma, their PTSD, all these things come to the fore, and we get them out. We get them out where we can see them and look at them, take a step back and really see the effect that they have, and that we have a say in the matter, that we can transcend the conditions to access something deeper within us that can guide us. I don't know what else to call that beside a spiritual experience. That's that connection. It does not matter what your faith is or your faithlessness, whether you have no faith. Over and over again, what I've witnessed is it deepens people's faith. When they're willing to question their God and claim their God for themselves, claim their life, claim their truth. This is the power of the plant medicine. This is the junction, the intersection between ancient indigenous wisdom and science. What we risk losing when we focus on the science is the essence. And I'm not willing to lose that.